Hey guys, this is chapters 3 to 4 of Doom Knee Deep in the Dead. I'm not going to waste too much time on the introduction because I have a class Zoom call at 2, so let's hope I can finish this beforehand. Chapter 3, we met a new character, Corporal William Gates, and apparently he's acting a bit strange. Chapter 3, Bill didn't stop. He came closer. Desperate, feeling like Cain, I returned fire. Given the half-dead condition Bill was in, killing him all the way should have been easy. The first bullet took him in the throat, above his Kevlar armor. That should have done the job, but he kept on coming. I pumped more rounds at Bill, and finally one connected with his head. That dropped him. But even as the brains and blood oozed onto the corridor floor, his body continued to flop around the way a chicken does when its head has been removed. Humans don't do that. And they don't have a sour lemon smell, which was suddenly so overpowering that I could barely breathe. I started shaking like a California earthquake. I was looking at a zombie. That was all that kept racing through my head, screaming the word over and over again between my ears. Zombie! 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 What utter bull. Maybe Darlene could believe in all that crap in bull roar. She watched those damned horror movies all the... I was never going to watch anything like a frickin' zombie. I was crazy, buggin', freaked like some hippie punk snot flying on a belladonna, whatever that means. There are no goddamn zombies. This is the real world. This is... Gates flopped some more, then stiffened up so quick it was like he'd been dead for hours. Scared, but drawn toward him like iron filings to a magnet, I crept forward and touched his corpse. Billy Boy was ice cold. This meat was decidedly not fresh. I gagged, then turned aside and vomited. He was blue. His skin was tough, like leather. Private Gates was a freaking zombie. Walking dead. They'd killed him. They'd sucked the life right out of his body, so that in just half an hour, he was many days dead. Darlene! I knew what I had to do next. I was trying while I did it. I hoped I'd find some magazines to go with my new acquisition. A 10mm M211 semi-automatic gas-operated infantry combat weapon. Sig Cow, we called it. Hell of a way to get one. Gates only had a single spare mag, and the one in his rifle was dead. Still shaken, I reloaded the rifle, dropping rounds left and right, and crept on, wondering who would come running at the sound of me murdering my dead chum. Leaving Gates's body, I started walking fast, then a little faster. Suddenly, I was running. Not in fear, but sick rage. The little voice in my head that usually keeps me on track was screaming about discipline and strategy and keeping my cool. The voice wanted me to make a nice, practical analysis of the situation, or of the evidence. I had every intention of listening to reason, but my feet and brainstem had other ideas. They were running from the face of a man who used to be a human being, running toward the bastards who reworked him. Is that a swear? I don't know. I've always had good survival instincts. Not bookmark. Come on. They'd never abandoned me before, not even in the worst firefights, but in a career that has seen its fair share of combat. But here and now, in a dull, gray cavern under the craggy surface of Phobos, my body was betraying me. If I could just stop seeing the slack jaw, the dead eyes, I could get in control again. But the face wouldn't go away. Even the characteristic twitch of the right eye that used to annoy me when Gates was alive and unnerved the hell out of me now. I couldn't stand to be winked at by a zombie. Yeah, zombie. Putting the word to it helped. At least I was running a little slower and started paying attention to my surroundings. I saw the walls of the corridor instead of a phantom mask of death. I heard the loud echoing of my footsteps, my labored breathing, and the shuffling noises of other feet. 4 of them were waiting for me, around the bend. 4 zombies. They stared at me with dead, dry eyes. And one of the zombies was a woman. I didn't know her. UAC worker. Thank God it wasn't Darlene. I didn't even want to think about Darlene with gray flesh and a sour lemon smell, sneering and pumping bullets at me without any recognition. I felt a rage I'd never felt before. My blood was on fire, and my skin couldn't contain the boiling, liquid anger. I shook from hate so deep that military training could never reach it. I didn't want to shoot these travesties of human life. I wanted to rip them apart with my bare hands. They shuffled toward me, fumbling their weapons and pumping shots like their rifles would never run dry. What did I do? I staggered directly towards them, raising my own M211 and taking one of their dead in its shoulder. A useless shot. It was the girl that broke the spell. Some little piece of who she once was must have been left in her brain. A faint echo or resonance of human thought. She didn't charge blind like the other three. She turned and fell behind cover to plink at me. Whatever that means. My higher brain functions kicked in. I shook my head, then strafed while sidestepping to a pillar. Once behind cover, I aimed a shot into Zombie 1's head. It roared, then danced like a headless chicken and collapsed. I got the message. Only headshots got me any points. Just like in the movies. In the game, it's not just... Oh, wait, in the game you do only do headshots. I forgot. For them, at least. The citrus stench almost overwhelmed me. I snuck a quick glance at the zombies I just smoked. Something squirmed inside its brain. Swallowing nausea, I took a bead on Zombie 2. Zombie Girl chitted, and the other two headed jerkily toward the console behind which she crouched. I caught Zombie 2 before it made it halfway, but the other one took a position behind cover. And why? And both it and Zombie Girl returned fire. A standoff was trapped behind the pillar. Two zombies behind an instrument console marked UAC and covered with sticky pad notes. 3 of us separated by no more than 20 meters. Swiveling my head, I stared widely around it, trying to spot something useful. 5 minutes deep into the Phobos facility, and I was pinned down inside a mortuary in hell. A dozen bodies sprawled on the floor from the open control room in which I stood, all the way to a curve in the corridor beyond which I could see no farther. Recognizing a few of them didn't do my stomach any good. They were probably UAC workers. I thought I'd seen war in Kafiristan. The undead and I played a game of tag around the pillar. I popped out to fire a shot, and they sprayed my position a moment after I abandoned it. There wasn't much time to appreciate the fine details. The third time I popped around for a shot, I slipped on fresh blood. Even as a kid, I was good at turning mishaps into advantages. Special training merely augmented my natural instinct for survival. I hit the floor on my knees, then dropped to my belly to aim a shot while braced against the floor. The third male zombie rose to fire down on me, and I caught it in the throat, knocking it backwards before it could reacquire its target. Its target, yours truly. My next shot took Zombie 3 in the right eye. Ooh. The female wasn't wearing uniform or armor. I realized she must once have been a UAC worker, not a soldier, which might account for her bad aim. She fired off a couple rounds that missed by a wide margin. I can fight this war forever, I thought, rage starting to creep back, and then it struck me. I could fight this war forever, at least until I was finally blown away, and not even come close to figuring out what had happened here at Phobos base. I had to take one of them alive, if that was the right word. The plan flickered through my head between one shot and the next, and now I had a plan. I was light drop infantry again. Quickly, before she could adjust and acquire me, I bolted around the pillar, head faked to the left, then cut right and hopped over the console. Zombie Girl swiveled in the wrong direction before she could turn back. I swung the butt of my Sig Cow into her temple. She dropped like bricks on Jupiter. The rifle sailed from her hand across the floor. I swung my own M211 across my back, flipped her over, and shoved my pistol in her mouth. That can be taken in so many directions. What the hell's going on? I demanded. She said. I pulled the gun out of her mouth, but she kept talking as if she had noticed it. As if she had not even noticed it. Is the key. Gate is the key. Key is the gate. Coming. Kill you all. Zombie Girl's eyes shifted left and right. She was preternaturally strong, but not as strong as Big Fly Taggart. My hand drooped as I stared at her, and she snapped at it like a rabid dog, trying to bite me. Abruptly, I realized why the zombies' eyes were so dry and their vision were so bad. They never blinked. I pushed the pistol against her forehead. If there's any peace alive inside of you, you know what this thing will do to your shriveled little brains. What the hell is coming through the gate? Great ones. Gate ones. She focused her eyes on me, seeming to see me for the first time. Why? Seeming to see me for the first time. She didn't answer, but for a moment her face was filled with such torment that I could no longer stand the interrogation. I cocked the hammer. Her eyes rolled up, looking over my head. You want this? I asked. Zombie Girl closed her eyes. It was the only kind of prayer left to her by the reworking that made her what she was. I closed my eyes when I squeezed the trigger. The gunshot snapped me awake again. I jumped up, slid the Sig Cow into ready position, and backed away from the undead dead. What the hell was going on? I started to think I have an answer. Part of an answer. Who built the gates? The question endlessly on everyone's lips might be about to be answered. Maybe. But were the great ones coming through the gates who had built them? Or had the builders already been overrun by some even more powerful, horrific critter who was now joyfully following the gate, finding and overpowering all the colonies of the Builders' empire? Never thought that was pleasant. Humans were either trespassers who were about to be run off the property, or desert after a main course of gate builders. I got the shakes, real bad. I backed into a dark corner. M211 pointed towards the corridor. The unknown. The way I hadn't been yet. I had not seen a particular body I'd half dreaded, half hoped to find. Christ. Darlene was still somewhere out there, one way or the other. I prayed she was lying dead on the deck, not stumbling toward me with dry, unblinking eyes and a sour lemon smell. I might soon be the only living human on Phobos. I realized I had little faith in the guards I'd left back in the mess hall. First contact with zombies, and they'd roll over and, to coin a phrase, play dead. I could imagine the rotting corpse that used to be Lieutenant Weems telling them to get with the zombie program. The Rons would salute and say, "Yes, sir," themselves straight to hell. The old survival mechanism was definitely starting to kick in for yours truly. I'd never been completely comfortable as a team player. I could see myself doing the job of zombie exterminator until I was the only biped left standing on Phobos. These living dead characters weren't very good at soldiers. Yeah, I could dust them all. Except for one little detail. I couldn't bear coming up against what used to be Arlene Sanders. No, that wasn't very appealing at all. It's not like she was my girl. She had her Dodd, and it seemed to satisfy her. Dodd and I didn't really like each other, but we tolerated for Arlene's sake. Not love. I swear, it's just that Arlene lived in the same world that I did, and I meant a lot more than just wearing the same uniform. She wasn't like any other girl any other girl I'd known. Arlene remembered being awakened by a DI heaving a trash can down the hall, same as me. She remembered the jar head getting all over her. On your face, down, up, down, up, down, up, down, up. You keep pumping him out until I get tired. What? She knew about Revel at 0500 PT physical training, or a dainty 8-mile run at 0505. I feel like that's military time. Arlene knew the smell of the disinfectant. She knew all about the stripping 2 years of accumulated crud off a wall with a chisel, so that the next guy could slap on a 1/4-inch thick splash of anti-corrosion paint. She'd spent just as many months as I wrestling a goddamn floor buffer up and down a corridor. Well, already dog-sacked from hours of PT, obstacle course, and combat training. Small arms, endless, mindless instruction on how to break down and reassemble a Sig Cow while blindfolded, and lectures on the exotic venereal diseases of Kafiristan, Mars, Phobos Base, and Ohio. Hours that had always seemed to add up to 26 or 28 per day. Arlene figured out a lot more about me in record time. She was bright, and just as committed to a military career as any other man in the outfit. She'd become my best buddy in the platoon. As I sat there, wiping blood and crud from my face in the eye of an impossible hurricane, it helped to think about Arlene, recalling her features, that drove the monsters from my mind. I played a little game with myself, not letting the horror rise up and engulf the picture I was drawing. I don't think I've seen a better looking woman than Darlene, objectively considered. She wasn't drop dead gorgeous. Where was I? In the conventional sense, to use an older phrase from a braver age, she was right handsome. 5'10" and compactly built. She worked out more than any... 5'10"? I'm almost taller than her. She worked out more than anyone else in the platoon. She had beautiful, well-cut muscles. Once, when for a few days she thought she might be with child, not mine, Gates had said, "She's such a man, I bet she got herself pregnant." He didn't say it loudly. I liked how she looked at everyone through slitted eyes, giving her a hooded serpent look. She was not to be trifled with, as one skank found out when he thought it was funny to sneak up behind her and pull down her pants. Yikes. The rest of us were certainly interested in seeing all we could of her well-shaped posterior. But we weren't idiots. Without turning around, she backhanded him perfectly and broke his nose. At the time, all I could think of was how much I enjoyed seeing her move. We're talking ballet here. This got real gross. Of course, there was a lot more to Darlene. She had a brain. Those are in short supply in the service, even in light drop, and I hated to see one go to waste. I took her to corpse music concerts, and she dragged me to old sci-fi movies. We got drunk together sometimes. We played poker too, but my only chance against her was when I was stone cold sober. I should learn how to play poker in quarantine. One night, we got so drunk that we fumbled our way into a kiss. It just didn't feel right. We were buddies, not lovers. Ugh. Darlene and I reached an unspoken agreement where we didn't talk about that night. As if to prove what a pal she could be, she started setting me up with dates. She had girlfriends who were always first-rate in one way or another, and they liked to oblige her by hanging with her pal. I didn't kick. I just didn't seem able to return a commensurate favor. I probably said that wrong. Darlene told me once how she wanted to save up some money and go to college someday. I didn't hold that against her. I wished the best for her. The best. That thought shot down my revere in flames. What could be the best for her now, in this place? Death, I guessed? Anything would be better than the gray flesh, dry, unblinking eyes, and jerking limbs. No, I heard myself talking on. She'd never allow herself to be turned into one of those. But what if this reworking took place after death? Swallowing hard, I stood up and decided to get back to business. I needed ammo. A wild shot had destroyed the magazine and receiver of one of the SIG cows. The only thing a zombie could use for it now would be as a war club, so I left it on the floor. Nobody had a select fire weapon, which was too bad. I sure missed the luxury of launching 3 to 4 rounds at a time toward a zombie head. Much better chance of a bullseye. On the other hand, if they had one of the 2 select fire M22 dog choppers that a squad carried, I might not be able to pick through the weaponry. I shoved some magazine in my ammo pockets and loaded up both weapons. No sense carrying another SIG cow. I really wanted to get my hands on that riot gun that Darty usually carried through, except it would probably mean ripping it out of her twitching fingers after blowing a hole in her pretty blonde head. That was hard to read for some reason. I followed the trail of corpses, another 2 bends of the corridor, taking as much ammo as I could, carrying without rattling like a medieval knight. We were supposed to carry head talks so we could communicate, but I didn't find any, which was pretty suspicious. No elves or mill data buses either. Nothing whatsoever that might be used to communicate what the hell was going on. And I always made time to check the faces, so long as one particular face wasn't there. I knew I could stand it. 4. Oh, this is a short chapter. I almost felt relief when I ran into 2 more zombies. Now that I knew what to do, it was just some sickening sort of exercise. I only killed one of them. The other, I just popped its rifle, then shot out its knees and hips. I wanted it alive, maybe to answer some questions before I smashed the curling mouth with the yellow teeth. I didn't recognize this one. It was a former UAC worker. Used to be a man, but didn't have much time. But it didn't have even as much mind left as Zombie Girl. But this time, I let it babble for some time. Big. Coming through. Big. Gate is the key. Killing. Killing. All the killing. Coming through. Coming to kill you all. The gate is the key. The key. Hell and damns is the key. Coming through the gate. Phobos. Fear. 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 Coming to Phobos. Coming to Phobos. Crossing the sticks. Pick up sticks. Sticks is the key. I waited until it started repeating itself after a moment. After a moment, a chill crept down my neck. The thing it was repeating itself exactly like a tape loop. Suddenly, more scared than I had been in hours, I put it out of its misery, and mine. I backed up in a dark alcove, praying that nobody had a light amp glasses or infrared sensor. I needed to think this through. A single strip of hellishly bright luminescence flickered off and on in the center of the ceiling. A bare sun bulb was all that was left of the lighting system. The strobe effect made shadows look like monsters creeping toward me, but I didn't smell any rotten citrus, and I had heard none of the characteristic zombie gibbering. Just a strange clicking sound ahead, like a dolphin with laryngitis. I figured I was safe for the moment. Phobos was pretty obvious. They were here, at Phobos base. They came to Phobos. But what did the thing mean saying they were coming from Phobos? I started feeling nauseated. My skin began to creep up and down my bones. If the zombie didn't distinguish between yesterday, today, and tomorrow, why every time I try to do this? Then maybe it was telling me that Phobos was not the final target of invasion. They were going to cross the river Styx, the river of the dead in Greek mythology. And what was on the other side? Well, hell, I supposed Hades. It's probably an archvile. But, wait, if you were starting from hell, then crossing the Styx took you to... I swallowed the nausea back down. Sweat dripped down my forehead, stinging my eyes. The target was Earth. Terra mostly firma. Home sweet hovel. I accepted the fact that I was a dead man. After 4 years of Catholic school, run by Father Bartholomew, like the Flash, Society of Jesus, I had always thought I was pretty much prayed out. Certainly, even after 4 years in the corps, the last 3 in light drop infantry, I hadn't had a word to say to the big guy, if you were even listening. But now, for the first time, a cumulative 17 weeks of actual combat intercut with 4 years of military life, I finally understood that stupid line about there being no atheists in foxholes. I didn't use the word that Jesuits, that the Jesuites, I don't know, taught me. But I know who I was talking to, begging for the guts and skill not to hose up. Suicide mission was a weak term for what I was doing. I'm as afraid to die as the next jarhead, but damn it, I didn't want to be as damned as a walking dead. I told the big guy what I'd done wrong in the last 7 years and promised him a lifetime of penance if he'd just forgive me and send me into the battle shriven. It was a hollow offer. I knew that lifetime was probably measured in hours. Thank God it's the thought that counts. Taking a breath, I swung my rifle around, finger outside the trigger guard, and stepped out of the alcove. I continued around a corner, clicking toward the clicking noise. Suddenly, I saw what looked like a working radio. Hurrying over, too quickly for caution's sake, I saw that the front part of the mechanism remained. The back was ripped out in a way that showed clear sabotage. Up to that moment, it had seemed possible that the radios were destroyed accidentally, casualties of battle. But this was clear evidence of at least human-level tactics, far beyond what I'd imagined zombies could do. There was somebody else wandering around here. If I hunted long enough, I figured I'd find it. If it or they didn't find me first. Turning a corner into the corridor, I saw more evidence of some kind of strategy. On the wall, a map to the installation had been buried beyond recognition, while the space around it was only slightly singed. Whoever that other something or somebody was, it knew that more of us would be coming after it. It didn't want us to be able to find our way. Ahead was a hatchway. The door opened. The light directly over it was broken, but a steady green glow emanated from beyond the narrow opening. The glow did not come from any electrical source I could think of. Even as I moved toward the entrance, I knew I wanted to be anywhere else but here. A new odor assailed me, far worse than the sour lemons. This was the loving, sweet aroma of something that should have been buried, or better yet, flushed. It literally burned my nostrils. I fumbled for the mask that accompanied the combat armor. Jesus, I thought, what I wouldn't give for a working environment suit. My hand shook as I pulled it over my mouth and nose, wondering what horrible toxic fumes I was breathing. The surge of the air from the suit augmented the bad air, but it did little good. The molecules of the toxin were evidently smaller than oxygen molecules. I didn't react to any of the filters. I could still smell them right through the mask. Even warning klaxon in my body was screaming. Every warning klaxon in my body was screaming. My skin tingled, and the proverbial hair on the back of my proverbial neck jumped up and did some PT. Oh, physical training. I was thinking like the video game PT. I took a few tentative steps farther in, then I came up short. I'd found the light source. Pools of thick green liquid bubbled on both sides of me. The stuff was luminescent, probably radioactive. It looked like boiling lava on St. Patrick's Day. I wasn't going to stop and run any experiments, but I had no doubt that the gunk would eat right through my combat suit. Given enough time, the prudent decision was to stay as far away from the green slime as humanly possible. Oh, that's like the toxic waste in the games. No sooner had this thought crossed my mind than a ton of bricks slammed into me from my right, knocking the 10mm pistol out of my holster into the green toxin. Something had decided to run the experiment after all. The 10mm made a hissing sound as it disappeared from my view. I didn't care. I had problems of my own. Flipping over, I struggled to get to my feet and bring my big sig cow into play. If I figure out what the hell hit me, the impact had blurred my vision. I stood up, dizzy, shaking my head. The figure had hit me so hard that I stood just out of sight, in the shadows. I assumed it was another zombie, but a stronger one than I had encountered before. Then I cut loose with a hiss, and more of that clicking sound. Then it cut loose with a hiss, and more of that clicking sound that I had been hearing. Well, one little mystery solved. The strength in this zombie inspired greater caution. I rolled my M211 around and skated to the side, waiting for the creature to come to me. He did. As the large body moved into sight, I saw a brown leathery skin, rough like alligator hide, with ivory white horns sticking from its chest, arms, and legs. It was inhumanly large, with maddened slits of red for eyes. It was a monster. It was a demon. Oh, is it an imp? So that's cool. That's all I'm gonna read for now, cause yeah, we're 13% through, and I got the second book, so I'll probably read some more tomorrow. I have lots of time with quarantine going on, but yeah, that's all I'm gonna film today. Bye, guys.